Now they're going to take the final vote on USMCA in the Senate. It is expected to pass, probably going to get 80 votes. It's a bipartisan deal here. Looks like it's going to pass any moment now. Lisa Boothe is here, Fox News contributor. I call that...
Stewart.
Yeah, hello. USMCA. I call that another win for the president.
It is another win for the president. And look, I think the challenge for Democrats right now is there is less and less room to run against the president. You have an economy that is humming, an economy that is booming. You've got trade deals that he has won on, whether it be phase one with China or the USMCA or even with Japan. You've got immigration under control because of the Remain in Mexico policy that he worked out by, threatening tariffs over Mexico. So you have all these wins that he is notching up, which limits the amount of space to run against him. Because if you're running it against an incumbent, what you have to do is convince the general electorate, convince the public that there needs to be a change in the trajectory. But if the trajectory is going well, why change?
Yes, that's a very good question. Why change? Hold on a second.
Okay.
You're right. I agree with you. A series of Trump wins. Now let's see what the media has been saying about what we consider to be wins. Roll tape, please.
He wanted a big course correction. That is not what this is. So I'm not sure how big of a win that's going to be.
This is phase one, and it is limited in its scope. President Trump is in this protracted thank you mode to talk about China as his own sort of innate counter-programming.
The characterization of this is just different than what the president has said. It's something. It's a cessation of hostilities.
Yep.
There's still considerable ground left to cover before we can talk about a meaningful trade deal between the U.S. and China.
Do these people know what they're talking about? My answer is no, they don't.
Well, the reason you're saying this is because of what I just said before. They know that President Trump is winning, that he's putting points on the board, so they don't want to give him credit. They don't want President Trump to win again. This is why we see from so many people in the media. What are they talking about? Recession. They talk about World War III with Iran. They want these things to happen because they know that it would deny President Trump a second term. They don't want him to have one. But what happened yesterday? You look at the contrast between what Democrats were doing in the House and what President Trump was doing. President Trump was winning for the American people with China, standing up against China, fighting for businesses, fighting for American workers, particularly farmers who have been hard hit. And what were the Democrats doing? Celebrating the only partisan impeachment purely partisan impeachment we have ever seen in history. That's what they were doing yesterday. So who's actually fighting on behalf of the American people? I mean, the ad honestly writes itself.
It's just a remarkable contrast. And you're right, yesterday was the classic example. On the one side, the House and Speaker Pelosi on impeachment, and on the other side, the president signing an extraordinary trade deal with China to the benefit of everybody. That's a ridiculous contrast when you think about it.
Well, and I think that Democrats have actually, in their attempt to try to bring him down with impeachment, to soil his name, to drag him through the mud, they've actually empowered the president. They've given him a weapon to use against them. And yesterday underscores that point and underscores what he should be talking about heading into November, is the fact that I'm out here trying to win on behalf of you, the American people. I'm fighting for you, whether it's trade, whether it's things like the tax cuts. I'm working on behalf of you. And what are Democrats doing? They're more concerned about partisanship. They're more concerned about trying to hurt me, hurt my candidacy. How does impeachment help the American people? What benefit does that bring? How does that help them when they're sitting around? What does that have to do with any kitchen table issue?
Oh, the nation is in peril with Donald Trump in the White House.
Well, then, news to me, Stewart, because they sat on the articles of impeachment. Nancy Pelosi sat on the articles of impeachment for almost a month.
Technical details.
Right. Yes. I mean, how do you make the case, if you're the Democrats, that this is some sort of constitutional crisis, that this is a republic in danger, if they're sitting and withholding the articles of impeachment through the holidays? They didn't care. This wasn't some sort of emergency. It's just about damaging the president. Everybody knows it.
Just stop holding back, Lisa Boothe, for heaven's sake.
Well, that's what they say about me. They say I'm a wallflower. They say.
What?
I'm joking. Yeah.
Okay. You've got 20,
I think your reaction sort of
you've got 20 seconds.
Right?
I'm going to give you 20 seconds, and I'm going to ask you the following question.
Oh, man. All right.
What do you think happens to Harry and
This is because I asked them before we went on.
What do you think happens? Long run. What do you think happens?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I hope they stay together.
Gotcha.
I do, but I don't necessarily think she seems like the nicest person.
But you are fascinated by it, aren't you?
I am, because this is why she has had so much staff turnover, and you can always, I feel like someone who loses a lot of staff, it's an indictment of the person's character, because it's a reflection of how they treat people. She's had a lot of staff turnover.
Do you think any American can
I think sometimes.
get
I think you're right.
inside the royal family and be happy? I mean, it's Americans. We're
I mean,
free
if there was
people.
another prince, I'd be willing to try it out.
Nicely done.
Oh, that was good.
Yes.
You know,
I think they're all taken, though. So sadly, I'll never be able to come back and report to you on that.
game, set, and match. Thank you very much indeed. Lisa, you're all right.
Thanks, Stewart. I appreciate it.
Okay, I want to bring in John Layfield, Fox News contributor. John, let's talk money. Let's not talk the palace. Let's talk money. Why not? No, and I don't want your opinion on Meghan Markle. You were cautious about. You were skeptical about the China trade deal. You were skeptical. Like it or not, you were. What do you think now?
Look, I don't like the fact that we're going from free trade to managed trade. I don't like that part of it. I'm very excited about the deal. I'm still very skeptical. I'm very skeptical about the fact that I don't think China is going to uphold their end of the bargain. I just don't think the numbers match when you talk about how much they're going to increase as far as buying of American goods. I just don't think it's possible. China is lying about something. In my opinion, I believe, because they're saying they're not going to take from other countries to buy from the United States. I just don't think that's possible. Well, but on the one other hand, though, Stewart, I'm very happy this deal got done. I'm very happy this deal got done. I hope that I am completely wrong about my skepticism about this China trade deal, because most of my money is in the market, and it's good for what's going on in America.
It sure is. We've got the Dow now at 29,200. Are we on track for 30,000 fairly soon?
Yes, absolutely. This China trade deal, the really good thing about it was it takes the potential escalation off the table, it seems, for at least 2020. So if you don't have something systemic, a global event like Iran fires a missile somewhere, ratchets up oil prices, or you have the trade deal go south or Brexit go south, which is not predicted to happen, we're only about 30% away from this historic milestone of 30,000, which looks like this wonderful milestone, and it is, but it's only about 3% away from where we are right now. So we should hit that fairly early in the spring, barring any type of global event that is unpredicted that happens.
They're voting on, you can't see it, John, but the left-hand side of the screen, they are voting on USMCA. We're pretty certain it's going to pass. I take it that is another shot in the arm for the market?
I think it's a shot in the arm because you take off the escalation rise again. We've already had two deals. We already had two trades that we had with our neighbors as far as Mexico or Canada. So this is not a new trade deal. This is a better trade deal, and that part is good. The fact that you're not going to see any tariffs going back and forth between our neighbors. All of this is very positive with these trade deals. I'm just very skeptical that China is going to uphold their end of this.
Okay, we got you. John, thank you very much indeed, sir. Appreciate that. Now, again, left-hand side of the screen, the voting is taking place. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion. It's a bipartisan acceptance of this USMCA. And the market shows that. We're up 164 points now. We're right around 29,200. It's going to be a win. Going to happen. Lisa Boothe?
It is. I mean, look, we're expecting, they're saying 176,000 jobs over the next 6 years as a result of this, tens of billions of dollars added to the GDP. That is a win for the American people. And I think most particularly, especially with China yesterday, I mean, we've seen farmers have been particularly hard hit as a result of the back and forth between the United States and China. They're finally going to get some relief, and that's a win for them as well.
It sure is. I love it. Gotta have it. There's still, I think the vote is in progress. Often you can see the voting board, so you get the tally. But no, that's in the House. That's correct.
Right.
You don't have the same voting board in the Senate, do you? But it's happening right now. Look, I have no doubt whatsoever this thing is going to pass. So let's have a look at some of the other market action here. Dow's up 160. This is the big story of the day. It's not so much USMCA, which was expected to pass. It's a very good thing. I got that. But the real big story here is what's happening to your money.
Yeah.
This is an astonishing rally. It took only 40 trading days to go from 28,000 to 29,000, and now we're already at 29,200.
Which begs the question, when do we hit 30,000?
Well,
someone
Valentine's
said 3
Day.
p.m. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be a little, maybe at the end of this quarter, we'll see. But there's no reason for people not to invest when you've got economic data that is strong. Mm-hmm. We have these trade deals being done. And where else are you going to put your money? I think it's the only place to be.
It's also been a very steady climb. It doesn't seem exuberant or irrational. If you look at the S&P 500, it's on one of the longest winning streaks without a 1%, without a major daily move in either direction. So it's a gradual climb, not a surge. And that might make people feel more comfortable that, hey, maybe we should jump into the market for all the money that is on the sidelines.
I think it's worth noting that there are some very big name companies which have hit all-time record highs. I'm thinking in particular Alphabet/Google. Just moments ago, they were at $1,444 a share. Not quite sure where they are now, but if they go to $1,445, they become a $1 trillion company.
Yeah, another one.
There's also a political angle to this as well, because you look at the fact that USMCA is going to be passed with bipartisan support, so it makes it a little bit more difficult for Democrats to try to take from the president on this victory because they have shared ownership in it as well.
Yeah, they do indeed. Chad Pergram's back with us. He's our D.C. producer. Are we looking at what, about 80 votes for USMCA, roughly speaking, bipartisan?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we think they're going to get about 80 to 90 votes on this. You know, when this moved through the coalition of 5 to 6 Senate committees, there were only a handful of no votes. And in just the past couple of minutes here, we have a statement from Chuck Schumer here announcing his opposition to the USMCA. And I'll just read this here. He says, instead of advancing global climate security, he said a lot of environmental issues here are much weaker. He said, but based on the greatest issue facing our planet, addressing the climate crisis, the USMCA still falls too short. So Chuck Schumer will be one of the no votes here. And that's come in just as I've been standing in front of the camera.
That is very, very big news. Chuck Schumer is the minority leader in the Senate. He will vote no on USMCA because climate change. That's a revelation to me. I was not were you expecting that, Chad?
Well, you know, again, you know, all politics is local. And you know, Chuck Schumer, you know, he kind of plays both sides of the street here when it comes to certain trade policy issues. On one hand, he's applauded a lot of what the president has been doing when it comes to China. You know, he wonders if the Chinese will, you know, adhere to their side of the bargain here. But he's been, you know, pretty appreciative of what the president has done. That said, in contrast to Senator Schumer, you know, you have a lot of Democrats, liberal Democrats, who voted for this in the House and probably many in the Senate, who are pleased with the enforcement regulations, things that they did not get with NAFTA, and that's why they will vote yes, because they think it's a far better agreement.
I'm just astonished. Lisa Boothe is still with me, political analyst here. I mean, I'm astonished.
Well, it's interesting because he's poo-pooing a deal that his own members are signing on to and endorsing by nature of voting for it. So it's quite interesting. But look, if Democrats had their way on environmental issues, they would kill major industries. They would send jobs overseas. Yep. They would kill manufacturing with things like the Green New Deal. And one thing that's interesting, President Trump, when he was talking about Iran the other day, was mentioning the fact that, look, we have energy independence, and this empowers us when we're dealing with issues in the Middle East. Well, guess what? If Democrats, even Joe Biden, who wants to get rid of fossil fuels, if he was in charge, that wouldn't happen, right? Because part of the reason why we're energy independent is things like hydraulic fracturing. So they would take us away from where we are now, which is a position of strength, with things like the Green New Deal, not to mention the economic impact.
Senator Schumer loses nothing by voting no, because almost everybody else will vote yes.
Exactly.
But he has staked out a claim and chucked climate change slap bang into the middle of a trade negotiation and a trade deal.
Well, and even Chad, he reversed course. He did show praise in years past for trying to fix NAFTA and praise President Trump for trying to do so. So this is a change, and it could be all politics is local, as Chad just said.
Chad Pergram's a busy guy. I know he's got to leave, but I'll give you the last 20 seconds. Anything to add, Chad?
The other interesting thing here is the unique juxtaposition. The Senate is on the precipice here in the next 5 or 10 minutes. I'm looking at the Senate floor here of giving President Trump his biggest bipartisan policy achievement. And here at the top of the hour, we're going to have the House managers walk over to the Senate, and they will formally begin the Senate trial. Again, this is Whiplash Day on Capitol Hill, a bizarre juxtaposition. Passage of the USMCA 1 minute and impeachment on the next.
Absolutely right, Chad Pergram, and thanks very much for delivering that very important important piece of news right there. Appreciate it. Again, Lisa, juxtaposition.
Right.
I mean, they're voting now on USMCA. They're counting, literally counting the votes. It's going to pass. President Trump gets a big win out of this. And in 15 minutes, they'll march over. The death march comes over again. Here are the articles of impeachment. Let's get rid of him. It's astonishing.
Well, and one benefits the American people and the other does not. How does impeachment help any American's bottom line when they're figuring out how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to pay for health care? How am I going to put food on the table? How am I going to keep this roof over my family's head? How does impeachment benefit them by any means? And what I think is so frustrating is everybody knows where impeachment is going. This is the biggest anticlimactic movie we have been watching because everybody knows the Senate's not going to get 2/3 vote, and they've known that from the beginning. We even saw liberal Democrat Brenda Lawrence, who's in a, I think a D+30 or something district. It's a heavily Democratic district, who had said she knows how this is going to end. And this isn't good for the American people. She said the Democrat, or they're not going to reach 2/3 vote. Yeah. So they shouldn't do it.
It's an exact repeat of yesterday, where we had Nancy Pelosi smiling away, signing on the dotted line for articles of impeachment. Meanwhile, the president is signing phase one of the trade deal with China. It's the same thing today, except it's the USMCA. And the people are onto this. They go glassy-eyed when you talk about impeachment. And, to Lisa's point, we know it's going nowhere. Complete waste of time.
Edward Lawrence joins us. He is at the White House. Edward, the news is breaking thick and fast, but I do not... I mean, obviously, USMCA is going to pass, and they're counting the votes now. But I wasn't expecting that letter from Chuck Schumer saying, oh, no, we can't have this. Climate change should be involved. What do you say?
It's interesting that the Democrats are pushing back, or at least high-level Democrats are pushing back on this. There's so many of the Democrats on the Senate side that are really for USMCA. Their districts or their states need USMCA. So Senator Chuck Schumer obviously just going after the president. I can tell you here at the White House, the staff has one eye on this vote just to see where the numbers fall going forward. I can tell you that Kellyanne Conway about an hour and a half ago or so said that USMCA is one of the achievements of President Donald Trump going forward, and that's one of the things he's going to talk about when he gets over to Davos. He's still expected to go to Davos when he's going to talk to other world leaders about how the U.S. can come to these trade deals. He's got the phase one of of the China trade deal, and USMCA will be wrapped up at that point.
Well, Edward, we're going to have another of these juxtapositions, which happen a lot these days. Edward, we're going to have next Tuesday the start of the impeachment trial in the United States Senate, and at precisely the same moment, juxtaposed, we have the President of the United States on the world stage in Davos talking about his trade deal. Talk about a contradiction. Edward, you're going to see it live.
Right here, right? That's one of the things that has been happening up to now. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi waited to send those impeachment articles over until when? Yesterday, when the phase one trade deal was being signed, and it's sort of which way does the American public want to go? Do they want to see the accomplishments that are going on, or do they want to see some of the obstruction things that are going on in Congress?
Okay, I might add, thanks, Edward. By the way, I might add that this development, and I'm going to call it a development of Senator Schumer saying no on USMCA because of climate change. He wants more climate change policy involved in it. No impact whatsoever on the stock market. In fact, we've gone up a bit more. We're now up at 29,200. That's an all-time high. It's an intraday all-time high a bit earlier. Look, records all across the board as the Senate is about to deliver a nice victory to President Trump on USMCA. They're tallying the votes. They're reaffirming the votes at the moment. That's the huddling going on over there. They've got the votes, but it's just not official yet until they've recounted and counted and checked them all. But we'll have the actual numbers for you soon. It should be in the neighborhood of 80 yays and the rest no's, which is an overwhelming bipartisan win, any way you slice it. Look who is here. Lisa, no, it's Kennedy.
No! Well, it depends. Whatever name you want to use. I know the check's always clear.
I'm sticking with the prompter. Kennedy.
Very good. Stewart, it's lovely to have me here. Thank you.
Do you have any input on Senator Schumer saying, no, won't vote for USMCA? There should be a lot more climate change stuff in there.
Nah, there's plenty of climate change stuff. And I actually thought that the president did a good job the other day. There was a gotcha question from a reporter during one of his longer Q&A sessions who said, do you really think that climate change is the hoax? And he was like, no, climate change is real. I want clean water and clean air. And I think that's how a lot of people feel. But in terms of this deal, I don't think that the government is the best delivery system for saving the planet.
This is a victory, though. This is a win for President Trump.
And
which way you slice it.
It is not coincidental timing, because you have the announcement of the first stage of the China trade deal yesterday that coincided with the signing of the impeachment articles being sent over to the Senate. And I love that all of these things, it's like going to a wedding and a funeral on the same day. And you know what? As long as you don't cry your makeup off, you're going to lose.
It's like a wedding and a funeral on two screens, back to back, side by side.
Remember 2018, which was the last time President Trump was at Davos. He didn't go last year because of the government shutdown. And he sold or tried to sell America first on the world stage, and it didn't really work for him. Fast forward now, he negotiated with China, he negotiated with Canada, he negotiated with Mexico. We have a win, arguably, according to many, with Iran. How is that going to work on the world stage this year?
They don't care. They're just going to talk about the environment.
Yeah, but the reception might be different. It might be a little bit different because he has successes to show.
But the president will make headline after headline after headline. He'd tweet up a storm right there from the Alps. And we'll all be reading it every day.
Well, the irony is, too, is USMCA is getting done almost because of the impeachment, right? Because what did Democrats do? What did Nancy Pelosi do? She said on the day that she announced the articles of impeachment, she said, oh, yeah, by the way, we're also going to be moving USMCA forward because Democrats wanted to paint the look and paint the projection that we're also trying to get things done. It's not just impeachment. We're not just focused on this. We're also focused on these other issues. So he might not have this win on. I'm sure he still would rather not have impeachment. But part of the reason they're even moving forward with this is because of impeachment.
Do we have John Layfield still with us? Are you there, John?
I certainly am. I'm here in Washington, D.C., surrounded by all these politicians. I think I need a shower.
Okay, and the Dow Industrials are now up 175 points, high of the day. Have you sort of gotten over your caution about the China trade deal?
No, I'm just skeptical about China upholding their end of it. I'm happy about the trade deal because it takes uncertainty out of the equation. It takes the expectation of an escalation out of the equation, which I think is good, and as far as USMCA as well. I think both are very positive for the stock market and for the economy. I think the most important thing right here, though, is companies like J.P. Morgan, who reports early. They become the bellwether for the U.S. economy. It used to be GE and Jack Welch. Now it's J.P. Morgan and Jamie Dimon. And when they come out with such good earnings, it sets the tone for the entire earnings season, and they've done it again this year. I think that's a big part of why the market's up.
By the way, in our studio, we do have a lot of monitors so we can see the other news stations, if that's what you want to call them. One of them, as in MSNBC, it says, soon the Senate formally receives impeachment articles. Yep. Apparently not interested in USMCA. How do you think about how do you feel about the American media always chasing down President Trump?
It's only helping him at this point. So? And I think the polling kind of bears that out. He is his own worst enemy, but they are his best friend in trying to enumerate his flaws. And every time you have a new brick on the foundation of a good economy that shows voters goods might be cheaper for you. You might have a better chance if you have a small business of selling your products in places like Canada and Mexico. And the worries about a global recession because of a trade war with China, those may be eased a little bit. And that all adds to not only consumer confidence, but, the secret deals we make with ourselves when we enter into a polling place. And for a lot of people, if they've got economic security, that's much more important than the idea of the government curing global warming.
What bothers me is if you watch almost any newscast this evening or last night, or you open and read any newspaper, or you look at your online feed on your little phone, all you're going to hear about is impeachment.
Yes,
he's terrible. This is just a dreadful country.
Yes, President Pelosi was trending yesterday on Twitter.
President Pelosi?
That's how it works. So today she's going to be president because the Senate receives the article. That's what a lot of people believe. They believe that the president has been removed, and they hear that
No.
Mike Pence knew something. Therefore, Nancy Pelosi is now.
Remember the Jeopardy contestants? They didn't even know after a clue and a picture of Adam Schiff who he was. So that makes the argument that impeachment is not resonating with the general public at all.
That's right.
I mean, if the smart people, the Jeopardy contestants, have no idea, how does a regular person?
There's a big block of people who watch the mainstream media, and it's preaching to the choir. They totally buy into it. Then you have others on the right-hand side. It's those in the middle who have to ask themselves, well, how is my life? Is the economy doing well? And generally it is, and that will make the difference.
Of course, nowadays, if you watch any evening news broadcast or you open a newspaper or certainly look online, the first thing you see is a Mike Bloomberg commercial.
But one benefit,
everywhere.
But one benefit President Trump has this election cycle that he didn't necessarily have in 2016 is a massive war chest. And so in politics, there's two different things. There's earned media, which is, basically reliant upon the mainstream media, various media outlets, and getting your message across. And then there's paid media, where you're actually paying to run TV ads, you're paying to run ads on social media. And President Trump, because of his massive war chest, can put a lot of money in that paid media. And when you do paid media, it's your message, it's in your terms, your voice. And so that is a vehicle for him to get his message out, just by nature of having this massive war chest.
But he also has rallies that.
True. Good point, Kennedy.
We cover.
I think it's the economy, stupid. We just had some in-laws visiting from Australia. They said they'd give anything to have the kind of economy that the U.S. has right now.
Yes,
I'm like,
wouldn't?
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, Senator Bernie Sanders just voted no on USMCA.
He's been no all along.
Let me get my surprise.
He's a no on everything because of climate change. He's in line with Senator Schumer.
Yeah.
Whilst we have her on the set, Kennedy,
no.
I wanted to ask you about this. Don't try to ease out of the set here. Look into the camera. Here we go. You saw the transcript. You heard the audio of that fight that Warren and Sanders had.
Right.
I love
liar, liar.
Yeah,
et cetera,
it's like a pornographic version of Cocoon. It's like these two codgers just going at it like, did you call me a liar on national television?
Disturbing.
Listen, Toots, I did not call you a liar, all right? Shut your sweet mouth and get out of here. We'll talk about it later on my terms.
Have you ever been in the acting business?
Oh, God, no. No.
You should.
I mean, what? Do you have a script you'd like me to peruse, Stewart?
Cory Booker just voted no. This is fascinating.
Cory who?
So that's at least two presidential candidates. Well, Cory Booker's dropped out, okay.
Yeah.
But Sanders has not dropped out. They voted no on this. Do we know how Senator Warren voted?
Well, let me guess.
When we get to the W's, we'll find out, I guess. But that's interesting. Two presidential candidates saying no to USMCA, which is of obvious benefit to every single American. And they're saying no, climate change is more important. I can't believe this.
I can, because they're running for president. They're hoping that if they become the nominee, that they have something to hit the president on. You've got to have some sort of contrast.
Yes.
So what they don't want to be doing is helping President Trump deliver one of his major wins. I mean, it's purely political for same reason why Minority Leader Chuck Schumer came out against it as well, despite the fact that you have, liberals and moderate Democrats that are voting for it.
Wait a minute. Are there that many votes in the Green New Deal? In the Green New Deal socialist revolution? There's that many votes in America for that? I can't believe it.
No.
You wouldn't get 10% of the vote.
Well, I don't think the average American is for the Green New Deal, because it's a massive government takeover of our lives.
I've got the numbers, 89 to 10.
Wow.
It has passed 89 to 10. Now, we know who two of the 10 no votes were, Bernie Sanders and Senator Schumer. And Cory Booker, so I've now accounted for 3 of the 10.
I wonder if any of them were
we'll find out the others. But
those free marketeers like Rand Paul or Mike Lee, I wonder how they voted on it.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I have no idea, actually.
I got to get a crystal ball. Mine's in the shop.
You momentarily silenced me there, Kennedy.
Oh, Stewart, that's rare.
That's not easy.
Yeah, really?
I mean,
Mark the
I've got
date
an opinion
down.
on everything.
So it now heads to the president's desk after more than 14 months.
Okay.
After being agreed with the other countries. So it's been a long time, and now we'll head to the president.
This is when you do a signing celebration, not for impeachment. This is when you get the pens, you take the pictures, you give the pens out. This is that's what you do for this.
Can you believe her smiling?
Hold on. Senator Pat
I mean, I can't,
Toomey.
but
Pat Toomey is a no. Now, he is a Republican, I forget which state, but he's a Pennsylvania Republican, and he's voting no. I don't know why he's voting no on it, but he's one of the...
Because there are some free traders who feel like it is still too constrictive, that it doesn't amount to free trade, and there's some heavy-handed government policy that could, in fact, stifle the economy in the long run.
Okay. It occurs to me that just as the House sends over the articles of impeachment here to the Senate, the Senate sends over the USMCA deal to the President to be signed before he gets kicked out of office by the Senate. I mean, this is utterly ridiculous. But I've got a moment here. I just want to say thank you very much to John Layfield, Lisa Boothe, Kennedy, Lauren, Ashley, one and all. Yet again, a rock and roll show where it's all happening.